Welcome to the Wealthologist Weekly, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Hobart, the Wealthologist. And today, we're going to talk about another interesting topic, specifically with the presidential election just around the corner. We're going to talk about inequality today. Hooray, right? We're going to go into what's going on with the gap between the rich, the poor, as well as the middle class. So if you're game, let's unpack this and really see what it means for your wallet, your loved ones. The thing is, every election season, we understand this, politicians, they bring out the big promises. This year, we got Joe Biden. He's really pushing for that student loan debt forgiveness and caps on drug prices. On the other hand, Donald Trump is talking about ending taxation on tip income for service workers. I think we could say that these policies are squarely aimed at reducing financial pressure on specific groups. Maybe we could even say that they're trying to buy those votes. I don't know. I think what's important is it's crucial to understand who benefits from these policies and also the understanding of who doesn't, and then how that might affect you financially or loved ones financially, and how we can plan around that. So let's go back a couple of years. You remember that massive monetary and fiscal stimulus during COVID? Those who owned different assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, even crypto, the value skyrocketed during that time. And it's because there was a lot of money pumped into there, especially if you work from home, because you didn't have necessarily a lot of expenses for travel and so on and so forth. But there's a kicker. That same price inflation that you saw in those areas, it actually hit the lower income groups significantly harder. Now, why? Well, it's because those that have fewer assets, they benefit less from this type of inflation, and it just simply drives up the cost of what they're buying. So let's put some numbers on it, shall we? The average hourly earnings are up about 22.3% since February of 2020. But the consumer price index has also shot up by about 20.8%. So just about equal, right? Maybe a little bit higher on salaries or on hourly pay. But when we talk about food and energy, which again, we all eat, we all drive, and when we think about it, those lower income groups spend more on that proportionally to their income. That has risen even more. Food prices are up by 25.3%, so outpacing the raises, and energy up by 35.6%. So the result, well, living standards for those relying mainly on wages haven't really improved. In fact, they've stagnated at very best. Some would argue that they've moved backwards. So let's talk a little bit about the job market. Now, overall unemployment, it's relatively low at 4%. But the thing is, and it's kind of interesting, younger workers are actually not doing as well. Unemployment among 16 to 17-year-olds, which my daughter's a 17-year-old, it has jumped to 13.6%. And for those 20 to 24, it's up to 7.9%. The thing is, it's actually kind of tough out there for the younger crowd, which is showing us that the labor market isn't all sunshine and roses for everybody. And the thing is, education plays a huge role in financial stability. With a lot of schools shutting down during COVID, those that could afford private education, they dodged a bullet in terms of learning loss, which brings us to a pretty critical point about education, specifically when we talk about inequality. Should funding follow the student rather than just going to public schools? This could be a game changer. It's not my job to tell you one way or another, but it is a consideration happening in more and more states to allow the money to follow the kids as opposed to allow the money to go to the schools. A lot of interesting conversations going around that right now. Now let's touch on immigration a little bit as well, because this is obviously a very hot topic. Low skilled workers are coming into the U.S. That certainly helps higher income natives by reducing labor costs, but it also increases competition for those lower income jobs in America, or those Americans looking for those lower income jobs. Now, this is pretty complex, and there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but it is something that affects the job market, specifically on the lower income side. Finally, I think if there's one key takeaway from today's talk, it's this. I think the only proven way to really reduce inequality the best is by allowing the free market capitalism to really work its magic. I want to be clear, it's not perfect, But whenever the government begins to interfere by pumping money into the system, it often creates more problems than it solves. Yes, short term, it can create some quick solutions, but we always have to ask the question, what are the long-term consequences? What are the issues that it might create down the road? And today I think we can say that there are some issues where the government went after a very short-term benefit with longer-term problems. All right, that's a wrap for today. I know, kind of a touchy topic talking about that inequality, but I think it's important for us to see that when inflation hits different Americans, it hits us differently. If you have assets, those assets tend to rise, and it can actually feel kind of good as inflation comes. Sure, stuff costs more, but your money's going up with it. For those that don't have those assets, well, their income hasn't necessarily risen as quickly with everything else. All right, I want to thank you for tuning in today to the Weekly Wealthologist. Remember, by understanding some of these broader economic and political factors, it can help you plan better financially. It also helps us as a firm better plan in the decisions that we're making and the advice that we're giving. Until next week, where we'll catch you with a new topic and more insights, I encourage you to stay smart and stay wealthy. Have a great rest of your week.